headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Well, let's find out now with Lisa Bloom. Lisa, thank you for joining us. I have to say, I saw the name David Boies, and it might not mean a lot in this country, but it certainly means that Virginia Giuffre was, well, lawyered up, right? He's something of a legal superstar.
Yes, and I want to say that the attorney Sigrid McCauley, who's also less well known, was really, I think, the prime attorney on the case. She's the one that I worked with. As you know, I represented one of the victims in the case, Shukri Walker. And so David Boies is certainly a well-respected attorney, although he's taken some dings, as we all have over the years from representing controversial clients. But his firm really worked very hard on this case, and I consider this a great victory for Virginia.
Okay, so you consider it a great victory. Some people here are going to be skeptical, and they're going to be skeptical because they say, or they'll want to say, look, here is somebody who we believe, or she alleges, committed extremely serious, as if there's any kind of sexual violence against me. There is no civil claim. I want to take this person to criminal court. This will mean the end of the proceedings. You know, some people here will look at her claim with a degree of skepticism and think that this is just all about Prince Andrew being able to rehabilitate his reputation. And if she was serious, and not my language, it'll be the language of my listeners, about pursuing him, she needs to take him to a court of law. There is no settlement that could ever justify what she's lived through. What would you have to say to people who think and feel like that?
Those folks need to understand how extraordinarily difficult and painful it is to litigate a sexual abuse case. I have represented victims for over 30 years. I represent dozens of them currently. And Virginia has shown more courage in one day than most of us show in an entire lifetime by not only going after Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but now Prince Andrew, and standing up to him. And she has gained a huge victory. She has accomplished what no one else so far has been able to do, to get him to stand with the victims, to stop maligning her, because part of this settlement is acknowledging her pain and what she has gone through, and that he did not intend to malign her character. I can assure you, having negotiated many, many settlements like this, which I do, frequently, every word of this statement has been carefully negotiated and gone over by the attorney. So let's look at what he's going to do now. He's going to donate a substantial amount of money to her charity, which is for victims of sexual abuse. He's not going to malign her anymore. He states publicly that he regrets his association with Jeffrey Epstein, which frankly he should have said a long time ago. So these are good accomplishments. Yes, it would have been nice for all of us to see this trial. I represented one of the victims who saw them together. She was prepared to testify. I've been working with the attorneys behind the scene to make that happen. But at the end of the day, Virginia gets to decide what's best for her. She does not have to carry the weight of the world's interest of a trial.
Lisa, I hear you. I'm an attorney too, and I understand we have to advise people in the real world, right? And it's extremely important to understand, precisely as you say, the trauma of a trial. And everybody has opinions, of course, until they have to actually see what a trial involves. But here's a thing that our listeners and the world will be interested in. There is a particular problem, and hopefully it'll be legislated for in this country, that when you sign a civil agreement involving an allegation of sexual violence, there should be no binding non-disclosure agreement that can prevent a victim like Virginia Giuffre from describing precisely her experience of what happened. But a lot of our listeners will be confused legally about what this means in terms of the Duke of York's culpability or guilt. To what extent does this civil settlement acknowledge, I want to be clear about that, acknowledge that the Duke of York did in fact do sexual violence? I use it in that term because she alleges rape. Did in fact do the things that Virginia Giuffre alleged against and alleges against the Duke of York? To what extent is this an admission of guilt?
He does not acknowledge that he sexually abused her. He does not do that in this settlement. With regard to an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, we also have laws in the United States that prevent sexual abuse victims from being forced to sign NDAs as part of settlements. That's applicable in California and New York.
In some states, right?
In New York. So I'm sure that she's not agreeing to never talk about her story ever again, because that would be unlawful. I also don't think she would agree to that. So she will be free to continue to tell her story. But he is not acknowledging what she accused him of. And I also want to say, on the criminal side, he could still be criminally prosecuted. That's not up to Virginia. That's up to the prosecutors.
Right.
So far, they have not been interested. And I took my client, the witness Shukri Walker, to the FBI. I approached the FBI, told them she wanted to give a statement, and they were not interested.
Lisa, can I ask you in general terms? You know, I've dealt alongside the DOJ dealing with international cases, you know, and it depends to some extent on the attorney. Can you help our listeners understand why it is when you have a witness as compelling as Virginia Giuffre with corroborating evidence, now with somebody like the Duke of York who has agreed to settle with her, why you believe the FBI were not interested in pursuing a case against, or in fact, state of New York or wherever it took place, why they're not interested in pursuing a criminal matter against the Duke of York? Is it because he's too big to bring down?
Because the FBI is terrible when it comes to sexual abuse cases. And this is based on my 30 years of experience. I've taken many, many victims to them. They will sometimes listen to their stories. Sometimes they don't even want to do that. And they very rarely prosecute. They want to have an ironclad case, and we don't have that in sexual abuse cases. There are exceptions. They did prosecute Ghislaine Maxwell, thank goodness. They had 4 victims there. But for the most part, they just don't. And there have been congressional hearings about this. They're, in my opinion, criminally negligent when it comes to going after sexual abuse.
Well, that's a whole conversation for another time. Lisa Bloom, it's really important people understand, for those people out there that are a bit skeptical, I'm going to ask you to just help us out again. It may be an echo of what you've said before, that this has resulted in a settlement. And so they may either come to the view that the Duke of York must be guilty, but critically that this was all about money as far as Virginia Giuffre is concerned. What is your message to those listeners?
Well, the money goes to her victims' charity. It's not going into her pocket, and that's going to help many other victims. So I don't think anyone can say it's just about the money for Virginia. You know, civil cases, which is what I do, money is a measure of justice. That's what we get. If the criminal authorities don't prosecute, then we have the option of going after somebody civilly. She has done that. She has brought the world's attention to this. I think she has gotten a tremendous victory. She has not gotten an acknowledgement, but she has gotten more than anybody else has done, and I salute her today. And so did the 8 victims of Jeffrey Epstein, who I represent.
And just to be clear, Lisa Bloom, she will be able to continue to tell the story. It's very unlikely she signed a non-disclosure agreement. Look forward to interviewing her soon. Thank you for your clarity and expertise, Lisa Bloom.
Good talk. Hot talk.
Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.